Hello and welcome back to the Staggies View podcast. I'm your host, Peter Mackay, for what is the first episode of 2024. Now, boys, we've been away for a short break over Christmas and New Year. I say short, we haven't actually recorded since the 7th, but we move on from that. Everyone knows by now that we love a hiatus.
The 7th of December.
7th of December, yeah.
Oh, bad.
But anyway, the period we've not been here should have been a lot busier than it was. So we're not quite as swamped with games to cover as we should be, thanks to a double postponement against Hibs and Rangers. Unfortunately, as you can see, we're not in the studio this time round, so it's back to laptops and Robbie's dodgy Wi-Fi for now. But joining me today, the usual crew. Ramsay, how's your Christmas and New Year been, mate?
My Christmas is great. Look, if you're watching on YouTube, I got this. Look,
superb.
Shout out Auntie Lacey. Look at this. But yeah, my Christmas is good, mate. New Year was good. Pretty quiet. Loads of Football Manager. Got Bro Rangers into the Cinch Championship. So watch this space. But yeah, no complaints. How about you, mate?
Yeah, good, all good. And Robbie, what about yourself? How have the festives been? You've been quite a busy man.
Good, mate. I had a lovely time over Christmas and New Year. Santa, good to me as always. Got a good catch up with the family. Plenty family dinners, plenty roast turkeys to be scranned.
Oh,
so
aye.
Can't complain. Little week away in Malaga. Just a little wee excursion. But back again for some more Staggies View and Ross County chat.
Of course, and it wouldn't be Staggies View without a nice little icebreaker to get us settled into the year. Ramsay, this is your one, so we'll let you kick off. What is your favourite away day of 2023? Obviously, we know it's a year of ups and downs, mostly downs in one particular up, which was obviously the playoff. To be fair, did we finish top? No, we didn't finish top 6 in 2023. Getting my dates confused. But
I wish.
Nevertheless, Ramsay, tell us.
I think genuinely my favourite away day in 2023 was the Dundee game that got called off, and we spent the day in Perth instead. So I think we've told this story on the podcast, or maybe it's that podcast that never went out. So we had a decision to make on the morning. We got on the train to Dundee at 9:10, and the train's going about 30 miles an hour because of a restriction because of weather across the country. 9:30, pitch inspection, 20:10, game called off. So we had a decision to make. Do we go back with our tails between our legs, or do we make the most of the day and stop in Perth with our good friend of the podcast, Liam, which we did exactly that. We did a little pub crawl in Perth. By the end of that, I was a little worse for wear, but good day out, no complaints. Lovely stuff.
I think that kind of sums up Ross County's footballing abilities in 2023. If your favourite away day was a day you didn't actually go to a game. Robbie, what about yourself? We've been to many together, but I don't know what your answer is going to be here. You missed half the season, been away on holiday, but what are you going to hit us with?
I'm not gonna lie. I'm just looking through the kind of results here, and none of them were good. Like, none of the away games have been great. For the amount of games we've been to, most of the results were shocking.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
The couple notable mentions being the 1-0 against Kilmarnock. That was a brilliant result. Kind of good weekend as a whole, but the game itself was pretty dross. I would say that St. John, what was it, 2-0 or 1-0? St. Johnston away last season. Simon Murray scored
2-0,
yeah. 2-0, yeah.
Who else scored?
Simon Murray scored 2, I think.
He scored both of them. That's it. Nah, I'll go with that. That was a good game. That very much. Right, that probably kind of kick-started our survival bid at the end of last season. So I would go and we had a nice wee night out with some of the players after, Pete. So we'll go with that.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I think I'm going for a different one again. I think one I actually remember really well because I wasn't in the pub before. I actually drove, so that probably helps my cause there. But Dundee United away, when we beat them 3-1, Jordan White hat-trick. Once we beat them, that was, basically we'd relegated them at that point after that result. So it was kind of in our hands as to what we were going to do after that. But that was a real high of last season, I would say.
See St. Johnstone away, right? Sorry, Robbie. I think that's the one. You're mentioning that night out. I was furious because you were talking about this night out, and I was like, oh no, I got work the next morning. I should have called in sick. Oh my
Should have.
God.
Whereas, probably highs and lows. I would say, what's your least favourite? Because there's been a few of them, and I would say possibly the next St Johnstone away day we went on could be a pretty serious contender.
Yeah, Motherwell.
Motherwell, 3-3.
Yeah.
3-3 is like, it's a tough one because it was such a brutal result, but it was a good game and it was a good day. Like it was I can't say I didn't enjoy
Although
the
that one gets points for my mental rundown from spring burn.
Yeah, that's true. But I think like the Hamilton game where it was 0-0.
I wasn't at that, so
penalty. I wasn't there.
0-0 Hamilton on penalties, or the Partick Thistle first leg. I think they were a lot more depressing than the 3-3, even though the 3-3 was a kick in the teeth, but those two were flipping terrible.
Yeah, mine's definitely the first leg of the playoffs. 100%.
I would say my worst away day moment was having to drive back up with you after that game. Very angry car.
Yeah, that was absolutely rotten. Absolutely rotten. But anyway, we're on to better times now. Well, anyway, since the 7th of December, lads, I think it's fair to say we've been a pretty rotten form. We've played 4 games since we last recorded, I believe, picking up 1 point in a 2-2 draw at Tynecastle. We lost all the rest of the matches. So yeah, it's not been great, but I mean, we'll take the first last 2 games as a pair. A pretty boring 2-0 loss away to St Mirren. We were all there together. It was pretty dross. That's a poor away day again. That could have been up there. Bull in though was good.
Yeah. See, we've done this twice. Before St Mirren away is always great. During and after is the most depressing thing you'll ever. The one before, the 1-0 Declan Gallagher, I think that was last season.
Yeah.
We just never seem to win at St Mirren.
I've never seen us win. That's one of 3 stadiums I think I've never seen us win at.
I think the last time was genuinely the boys' hat trick, wasn't it?
That's what I remember. I was at that game. I remember that game very fondly, but since then I can't think of a single. I've probably been there 4 or 5 times since and come away with absolutely zilch.
That's nearly 9 years ago.
Oh my life.
Getting old, Robbie.
It's terrible. Terrible.
Anyway, following on from that, we conceded a 95th minute goal. The ball smashed off Joe Shaughnessy's body and went into the back of the net. It meant we lost 1-0 to Dundee. And you have to say, Ramsay, I would say 2 really poor and frustrating results in a row, that wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the St Mirren game was just a bit of a nothing performance from us. I think St Mirren definitely deserved it. They were the better team over the game. They got that 2 goals within about 10 minutes, which kind of ruined our day. We didn't look like getting anything after that. The Dundee game, I wasn't there, but I got bits of it through a totally legal stream, and we just I think Derek Adams saying after that we were the better team. I think I do agree, which makes it the last goal a major kick in the teeth. It was 90 plus 6 the goal went in, which obviously triggered what we saw after the game. But I mean, yeah, those 2 results kind of drained away the last of the good feeling from the 3-0 at Motherwell.
No, as frustrated as you say you were, I don't think you were quite as frustrated as Derek Adams was after that game.
Nah, probably not.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is about that, obviously, I agree with what you said, Ramsay. I think St Mirren was in that run of games was a bit of an anomaly because I think we were really good up until that point. And then we I think we're expecting more. And then to kind of just not to go there and not really threaten whatsoever was kind of a bit naff. And then I've seen us be worse than that, but I think it was the whole thing with Dylan Smith going off injured at a corner and then switching to a back 4. It's kind of caused a bit of confusion, and then as soon as they got one goal, that was it. They were just going to protect the lead, double their advantage straight away, and you knew there was really going to be no getting back into it. But again, talking about this Dundee game and the whole Derek Adams saga, I actually thought we were quite good against Dundee. I mean, I don't think we were good, but we threatened the goal. I think we played fairly well.
We were a lot better than we were against. We were a lot better than we were against St. Mirren.
Yeah, exactly. So our manager seemed to disagree. So I'll let you take it away, Robbie. That interview, everyone's seen it by now, and everyone's still bringing it up, and I think they're going to continue to do so for quite some time.
Pete,
did you agree with any of it?
Pete, sorry. Before we continue, sorry, Robbie. You were actually in the press room for that. Can I just ask what like the atmosphere was after that? After you left the room, was it just kind of like stunned silence?
Yeah, I mean, even throughout, because obviously he went in to do his TV interview first, and kind of like didn't think anything of it. I was like, he's obviously going to be annoyed. We've just conceded in the 97th minute. But then he comes out and it kind of just got progressively worse and worse. And then started talking about Markham. And then I kind of just had to refrain myself from like shaking my head in case he hit me. But I think, like quite a few of the people there were kind of coax more out of him to try and, see why he thought it was so bad. But he was kind of very stern and just wanted to say what he thought. And that was kind of it. And then when he left the room, it was kind of just like, what in the hell we just happened? What have we just seen? But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a first for me. That's the most scared I've ever been in a post-match interview. So I can't imagine being a player after that game because I was certainly, in my head, I was like, I'm not asking this guy a question today.
It's a weird one. Because I think at the time, when I heard that press conference, straight away I thought, right, he's come out, he's lost the rag, he'll calm down a wee bit. Then he went straight to the BBC and said the exact same thing. Straight to the club media and said probably even more so to poor Jack, who was just trying to coax a little bit of positivity out of him. It was an absolute shambles. I think it's a weird one. I think on the whole, right, I think the comment about Markham is complete and utter drivel. And that's just so nonsense. And everyone knows that's rubbish. Especially for a team League Two, who I believe lost 6-0 that weekend against Wrexham. So I think he took it a wee bit far. The standard is pretty shocking across the league. But I'm not convinced that's the way to get the best out of your players.
Ramsay?
I mean, when that itself happened, I was like, oh my God. And obviously we saw the reaction. It got like nationwide attention. Like it sparked loads of discourse. I've never been inside a dressing room. I have no idea, obviously, what was going on, post-match and stuff. But all the things that's come out after, like rumors of like, him losing the dressing room, it's like it is quite concerning, but to like the same level, I don't know how much of it is actually true. So I guess we'll start to see how much of an impact it has had. But at the time, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Like, Pete, you texted me saying, I can't believe what I've just heard here. I'm like, right, he's lost the rag about the game. What do you expect from Derek Adams? But when it came out in the press, I was like reading it. I was like, oh my God, this is actually kind of mental.
Yeah, I think the thing for me, I kind of agree with you, Robbie. I think he's definitely got a point on the standard in the league as a whole. I think that the way teams go out to play football is kind of pragmatic from the start. I mean, in one of the fan views I did, I just had a quick look through the league and you can see straight away, I think it's like 9 out of 12 teams at the time of that interview were playing with a back five. And it's kind of like, just kind of makes for naff football. And although that's what I kind of hinted at, is that I think it was a bit hypocritical because we were playing a back five with 2 sitting midfielders and a target man. You're not exactly setting yourself up to play tiki-taka football sort of thing. But yeah, I think the whole Markham thing, I think it was just throwing the players under the bus a bit. And I think he probably did it to try and get a positive reaction from the squad. But I think we've kind of got to be honest and say it's not worked. But he's still got time, and he's still got this transfer window to patch it up and repair it and go again. I believe that he did apologise to the players. I think Kyle Turner was in the press the week after saying they've had an apology and stuff like that. But whether that was, enough to undo the damage, yeah, I think time will tell in the long run.
In terms of the hypocrisy, I think he can only really play what he's been dealt. And I think that the squad right now, there is probably scope in the squad to make a bit more attacking. I think he has tried to do that the last couple of games, but I do think that it's not like the five at the back. Maybe his comments were a bit more hoping that Roy might give him a bit more money, maybe back him a bit more so he can bring new players and have a more attacking style and have a bit more at his disposal. For instance, some wingers would come in nicely, but yeah, he's just a crazy guy. So obviously, just does not care at all what anyone thinks. And
I mean, just on that, sorry, Ramsay, it's quite interesting. You talk about budget and stuff there. I mean, he did mention in that interview, one of the sentences was that he looked at what's been spent and basically can't believe it for the standard that his fans are getting to see now. And he's mentioned it again this week. He said that obviously the players aren't away on a warm weather training camp like some other teams because the budget's been spent for that on the playing squad. And I think it was I believe it was in the Daily Record. He's kind of urging Roy and the county board, if you will, to back him this January to basically get us out of this mess we're in. But I mean, do you think that's what it's going to take now to kind of patch us up and see us through? Is it just Roy, please let us sign players, or can he work with what he's got?
I mean, hold on. Before I answer that, if that's what he's trying to get through that through that interview, it obviously hasn't. I don't think it's worked because he was in the BBC the day after doing damage control, so he's obviously had a knock on his door from someone because he said, "Oh, if you're a paying customer, I wouldn't be wanting to see that, or I wouldn't be coming here." Paraphrasing, obviously, and obviously that's not the way you want to sell the club. That's not the way we sell tickets. So I think he's had a knock on his door from someone saying, "Can you please retract or do damage control or something?" What was the question actually about transfer? Sorry, Pete.
Do you think that's what it's going to take for us this window? Is it going to have to be a big spend job to get us away from these bottom two places?
We're well known, and Derek Adams in particular is well known for bringing a lot of players in January. I think this is a squad we have to remember that at the start of this season we're signing players like Turner, Henderson, Allardyce, and Allardyce is a little older than those two, but promising Scottish players who have shown promise in the Championship got people really excited. That, along with keeping Danda, was obviously things people saw as really positive. Reed, for example, it obviously kind of hasn't really worked, under Mackay, etc. He lost his job, but this is a squad. I still believe there's players in there with talent that can get a job done. That said, I think it does look like we need a little bit more reinforcement, particularly in the wide areas. We don't have enough wingers, especially with how Derek Adams traditionally wants to play. So I think we will see quite a bit of turnover.
If you had asked that question after Hearts, I probably would have given a bit of a different answer. After Hearts, it still looked like the team was kind of still playing for him. Really, I don't know what you boys think, but it didn't really look like me that the players were down toolsing at all. But after that Aberdeen performance on Tuesday, there could be a few signings coming through the door over this winter break.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've got in the notes here a question mark surrounding dressing room unrest. I completely agree with you on that, Robbie. I actually wrote after the Hearts game that, maybe that scathing interviews worked to an extent. I mean, it was, although we threw away a 2-0 lead, been going 2-0 up at Hearts and playing so well against a team who are odds on to finish third, just after what's been said and what's been done, was pretty impressive. But as you said, Robbie, it did come crashing down quite hard. But before we get on to that performance, we'll talk about the game at Hearts 2-2. I mean, obviously there was a clear standout individual performance as well, and a man that we're going to have to sadly discuss later. But just overall, Ramsay, the 2-2 draw against Hearts, did you see that coming?
The performance or the result, or both?
Both.
I can never predict a County defeat, but I was a bit apprehensive going into this one just because we all remember what happened last time we were at Tynecastle, and Lawrence Shankland comes from that Bruce Anderson type of player who scores against County every single time, which obviously came to pass. But I know Derek Adams got a bit of flack for saying that we'd murdered them in the first half, but we did. It could have been 2-0 by halftime. It was genuinely a very good performance, and I was really impressed. And I think you're right, Pete. That game was a sign that the players weren't down in tools or whatever. Obviously, you saw the Aberdeen game after that wasn't nearly up to the standard, but I think it was genuinely an encouraging performance. Obviously, as he said, we saw from Danda real quality, and that's not even talking about the free kick. That's what he can do. He does everything for us, and he's an excellent player. The first goal is an own goal, which I think is a little unlucky for Josh Sims, because if the Hearts player isn't there, I think he does tuck that away. I think he's still waiting for his first goal in the league, which is a bit unfortunate because I think he deserved that there. But it was a real kick in the teeth to concede those 2 goals. But I think overall we did quite well. And it's that thing of, if you offered me a point before the game, I'd probably snatch it with both hands. But the nature of how we played, I think we got a little bit unlucky.
Robbie, would you agree with that?
Yeah, summed it up pretty well. Like a point in Tynecastle is a result that you would be crying out for going into the fixture, but then 2-0 up with, what was it, like half an hour left or something? Like
something like that.
Should be able to see out the game, especially because we just seemed to stop defending going to the second half. I think that overall, though, played well. Like going forward, we looked dangerous time and time again. Could have scored a couple more in the first half. Obviously, we had that goal chopped out in the opening couple minutes. That was it was offside, but it was a very tight decision. And then did threaten them throughout the game. There was a couple of times they were coming back at us as well, and we were maybe fortunate not to go into half time behind. But on the whole, I thought it was a really good performance. I think that Simon Murray certainly didn't there's been lots of talk about him. There's lots of talk of him that he might be off ski, perhaps to one of the Dundee clubs. But I wouldn't say that he was down tools in that game, especially with that assist for Sims. Was a brilliant bit of football. I think Jan Dander's been given a lot of credit for his performance. I think that it's a bit over the top. I don't think he's that good, and I think Hearts should really leave him alone over the next few weeks. He's just
he was rubbish.
Overrated.
Average midfielder in this team.
It was Mark Sheaf who scored that free kick.
Mark Sheaf's the standout. If you want a midfielder for Ross County, go for Mark Sheaf.
Sorry, Matt.
No, I agree with both of you. I think, to be fair, Robbie, I agree with you. I think we kind of were getting carved open a bit all game, and we're maybe have to say we were probably fortunate to go 2-0 up without reply. But I think Hearts are always going to do that. I think they kind of showed their quality at the end, the fact that they can just keep going and they're going to keep creating chances. And it kind of just got too much for us in the end. But nevertheless, as you boys both said, you take a point at Tynecastle, especially after what happened last time we went there. But we'll not mention that scoreline because that's still a sore one. But nevertheless,
any credit towards Hearts does not take away from that little scumbag dive and cheat. That is Alan Forrest, who's of course had his yellow card rescinded.
Did you think it was a pen?
At the time I thought it was a pen, then I watched it back and thought it was a pen. and the SPFL agreed. So
Yeah,
Laidlaw would have saved it.
brilliant from Ross Laidlaw.
yeah.
I just love the way that Ross Laidlaw trips him and then runs at him with so much like anger and fury. As if, like, he just sold it so well.
Yeah, just our whole back four just giving him absolute pelters.
Poor boy gets tripped up when he threw a goal. I actually thought, I'm not gonna lie, I also thought that the Ben Purrington one was a bit on the line for a penalty for me.
You reckon?
At the time, I thought penalty, and then VAR didn't
Yeah.
give it, and then I watched it back. I think it's a little bit less clear and obvious than the Forest one, but
To say the least.
I don't know. We got away with a couple that game.
Yeah, I mean, we'll take it. We'll take it and move on. Obviously, I mean, after that, you're thinking spirits are quite high here. Obviously, on that Saturday that we drew 2-2 with Hearts, Aberdeen, they lost 3-0 at home to St Mirren, which kind of, tickled our fancy a wee bit. Aberdeen were coming to Dingle next off the back of a 3-0 loss. Barry Robson under monumental pressure. Derek Adams off the back of a really positive result. Players seem to be playing for him. Yandanda in the form of his life. And then, yeah, what the hell happened?
Well,
on the 2nd of January, what happened?
Sorry, Pete. Before the game, I was scared because it was all set up for us to win. Robson under massive pressure. But it seems like every time Aberdeen have a manager under pressure, they play us, and it just all kind of falls to bits. And I was at
It's
that
only
game.
Robson. We've saved his job 3 times this season.
At the game, I was next to my uncle Al, who is the most negative football fan I know. And
More
it's
negative than Pete.
Huh?
Oh, all right.
More negative than Peter.
Oh, I don't. It's close competition. No, you know what? When we're winning, Pete is more negative when we're getting beat. But Pete's if we're winning, Pete's in a good mood. If we're winning, my uncle Al's like, it's crashing down soon. It is the most depressing, one of the most depressing games I've ever been to. Terrible, terrible, terrible.
Yeah, it was bad. Not much more I think needs to be said. I mean, we can look at all the individual goals, but I don't think it's gonna do us any favors to do that. Obviously the game ended 3-0. They also had a goal chopped off. And just to add a cherry on top at the end, Jack Baldwin got himself a straight red card
For the same thing he got sent off against Aberdeen in the cup for.
Yeah, basically chasing a through ball and upending Esther Sockler. Just overall, like Robbie, I'll go to you first, but I mean the difference between that game on Saturday to Tuesday to change so drastically, what do you think's gone on there to be so different against a team who you could argue are worse than what we just drew with? Obviously, circumstances change and anyone can beat anyone in this league, but to have such a lull in form is a bit strange, would you say?
That's certainly raises alarm bells. I would say. I think that, to be fair, the defending was just atrocious again. I think that there was a good few individual errors that led to goals, and I suppose when those goals go in, that causes a bit of a drop in confidence, a drop in standards. That Hearts obviously we took the league, so we had a bit of momentum, whereas Aberdeen we just didn't seem to really get going at all throughout the match. I don't know. We obviously we had it earlier in the season against Aberdeen. They just seem to be a team that can cut us open really, really easily, and that we struggle to defend against. They do have good fast strikers, but it's just it was a weird performance. It wasn't a game I want to watch back anytime soon. Anyway.
Before, I'm probably gonna be very, very critical later, but before we get onto that, I think Aberdeen had been playing a back three in the weeks before and had been doing really, really poorly. I think on the day they switched to a back four, just concerning Aberdeen, how much like going forward when they play a back four, as they probably will now because they beat us. I didn't think they were that great on the day. Do you think we'll see them start to lose again, even when they play a back four? Was it just us, or was that something to do with it?
I think it's a bit of both. I think they've kind of shown us, I don't know, they've shown especially us this season that they can do it. And obviously they've beaten Rangers as well this season. So there is times where I think they can turn it on and go and batter teams and really show themselves for what they are. But I think the issue with them, maybe you could argue similar to us, is definitely more of that kind of mental consistency thing, whereas they'll have like a random game like that St Mirren game where they lose 3-0 and they really like a result like that shouldn't be happening. Whereas you can kind of compare that to us and look at even last season, like the 6-1 at Hearts or the 5-0 Motherwells, like they happen, but we always seem to manage to bounce back. But nah, I don't know. I thought they were good, to be fair, but I think you're right, Ramsay, in saying that they were massively helped by how shockingly poor we were from middle to back.
I don't even know where to start. I guess maybe the midfield. It's like Laturi, Sheaf, and Danda. Who was it against Hearts? Sheaf, Danda. It wasn't Laturi.
No, it was Allardyce.
Allardyce, yeah. Allardyce, oh my God, he helps us massively in that midfield, I tell you what.
Yeah, I don't think I realized how important he was until he was ruled out injured. And then to me, I would argue that going into that game against Aberdeen, we kind of were left with a midfield that didn't have a ball winner in it at all. I think you could even say we had an 8 and a 10 trying to sit and defend in Laturi and Sheaf and Danda and Sims out wide. Obviously, when they're playing in those 10 roles, they aren't really in the team to do a lot of defensive work. And although they did the best they can, you know, what can you really ask of Sims and Danda to try and defend against guys like Polvara, who are like 2 feet taller than them and trying to win aerial flick-ons? It was really mismatched in the end. And as Robbie mentioned, they just carved us open with every through ball. You know, no matter who it was playing it or who it was receiving it, they managed to split the defense so easily.
It was just like cutting through butter.
I want to say, yeah. It was, really poor. But, I mean, do you think that's, you know, that would you say that's the worst you've seen us this season, Robbie?
I would, personally, from games I watched, but I never watched Aberdeen away game, which was obviously 4-0. But I believe you think that this one might have been worse than the 4-0 anyway.
Yeah, I think it was the manner and what we were trying to do this time. It was like, I think for the squad we've got right now and what Adams was trying to do, it just wasn't working. But yeah, we continually tried to do it. It's the fact that we were going short from goal kicks, corners, free kicks, and like trying to be. And I know Adams wants to play football on the front foot, and I admire that, and I would love that. But I think for what we have, or what he had in that 11 at that current time, I think we shouldn't have been trying to play, you know, tippy-tappy football, playing out from the back. I think we should have made use of the aerial advantages we had in corners, and we should have been getting the ball in the box, trying to put it on top of them. Whereas, you know, when you've got a Jordan White standing in the box and you're taking short corners and trying to work the ball around, we were just getting cut out every time. And I think they just pressed and pressed and pressed, and we had nothing.
I think the epitome of the short corners you were mentioning, I think it was maybe who was taking them? It was either Danda or Laturi, I think, took one to Brown on the edge of the box and fizzed it so hard that he missed him and it went back to the centre circle. Yeah. And we had to build from there. So it just wasn't working. I think you're talking about worst performances. I think the worst performance apart from that was the one that got Mackay sacked, St. Johnstone away. And I think this was probably worse than that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think even in the games that we mentioned to kind of compete with that, we at least had chances. Whereas really, thinking about the Aberdeen game, I can only remember one shot on target that was from Josh Sims, which was like a bit of a P roller and didn't threaten at all.
Straight down the throat.
Other than that, we had nothing. It was just we tried to play out from the back, get into the midfield and turn and go. And as soon as we started to play out, the press was too strong for our players and they just couldn't deal with it. And we weren't good enough to work the press out of the situation. I think it's quite critical, but I think that could have been realised earlier, to be honest. And I think we could have maybe just changed what we were doing. I think we had players on the park who were capable of playing other ways. As I mentioned, we had Jordan White and Simon Murray, who under Malky, scored countless goals from long balls and flick-ons. Not saying that's the way we should be playing, but I just think we should have been more adaptive into the way Aberdeen came at us.
I think when we're trying to play out from the back, I think Victor Laturi is our most important player when we're trying to play like that. So when we're doing that, he has to be on it. And with the most respect to Victor, he did not have a good performance against Aberdeen.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think you really need to say that because I don't think anyone did.
No, true. It's probably hard to highlight him, but when we're trying to play like that, he's our most important.
But no, I completely agree. I think obviously the defense was rubbish, and no one can shy away from that, and they would say that themselves. But I think the midfield was an issue, as I mentioned. There was no one in the midfield who was a proper anchor, who just wanted to sit in there and tackle and win the ball. And against a team, especially in the way Aberdeen were playing, when they're trying to slide through and get runners in behind, you need someone in there who can carry those passes, and we didn't have that whatsoever. Should we discuss the red card?
Is there much to discuss?
Not much to say. It's stuff.
Yeah.
Stupid tackle when you're 3-0 down. What are you doing?
I mean, just Baldwin in general, he's the face of this podcast. But I think especially, it was just start to finish. I think the first goal I saw him getting flack for, I think that's actually the one where he can't really get the blame because he makes a last-ditch tackle to stop a cross coming into the box. And there's kind of no one else there. But the second one, he just gets disrespected by Clarkson, who we know is a good player, but on the edge of the box, stepping back, he can't get megged like that. And then he just plays it across like nothing. That was just... Jack really, really did not have a good time in that game. And I know we're saying no one did, which is true. Like, it's 100% true, but yeah, hard to watch, wasn't it?
If we end up staying up in the league on goal difference by 1 goal, and that red card will be well worth it.
Yeah.
If not, it's a terrible, terrible decision and just stupid challenge that gives Adams a bit more of a headache going into the next game, I reckon. Will he be out for more than 1 game after that?
Yeah, well, straight red. It's got the potential to be a 3, I believe.
I wouldn't say it was.
It's not violent conduct. It's not violent.
Yeah. So it should just be 1. But nevertheless, I mean, you could maybe argue it's come at a good time when we've got Celtic up. Or will it be served against Partick, actually?
I think so.
Sure.
Wow.
Good, well-researched podcast host.
Yeah, cheers for that.
What do you make of what do you boys make of Derek Adams? I'm just looking through the BBC article here. Derek's interview after the game. He said, "We've made 3 errors over the afternoon. They've got 3 goals, and we didn't test the goalkeeper enough. We didn't create enough. We huffed and puffed, but we did. But did we have enough shots? The answer is no. Did we defend poorly? The answer is yes. Aberdeen were better than us." And then the bit that I think stands out to me is he said, "The manager can't put on performances. Players put on performances. There will be transfer business because we don't have enough strength and depth. We have to add to what's already here."
The man just can't help himself.
What do you make of that?
He just can't help it.
I thought we'd finally got a post-match interview without something controversial, but I hadn't seen that. Oh my god!
Is he right? Is he wrong? Is he?
I think if he can't help it, then what's his job? Like, fair enough. Like, players have to perform on the day, but when you see something's not working, it's your job to sort of. And obviously, we don't know what happened in the changing room at halftime. We don't know if he's gone off the handle or if he's tried to change something. But I don't think... Hold on. Sorry. No, go ahead.
I do think it's harsh saying, like, yes, it is his job to get the best out of players, and I think he has to do that. But I do think I think that point is harsh before a transfer window. I think if he goes in January, turns the team around, and then they start firing on all cylinders, then I won't have a bad word to say about the man in terms of that. But he has picked the team. He has gone back to a four at the back. He has decided to, I suppose, like, it is a bit of a struggle when you didn't have Allardyce or Randall, but he has admitted a kind of holding midfielder and gone for it. So I do think the tactics weren't great on the whole, in my opinion. But he isn't wrong that the three defensive errors were more, I would say, down to the individual mistakes than.
That's true, but I just don't like him trying to cleanse his hands of any blame.
I don't even know if it's that. I think the thing for me is that, despite what he said, and sorry, not despite, but as well as what he said in previous weeks, he's kind of digging the knife in a bit further, if you will, as to what he's got at his disposal at the moment. And for all the rumours that there have been about certain individuals, being upset and kind of, wondering if the issue should be taken up with higher powers, then, he's not really doing himself any favours in terms of if players are going to want to leave if what they're hearing after the game is that it's their fault and there's nothing he could have done about it. I think it's a bit rich to say because, as you said, Robbie, yeah, okay with a limited squad, but the tactics were pretty poor, let's be honest.
I think
go ahead. It's a tough one. You should obviously, as a manager for a football club, try and defend your players. But if he feels that the players are letting him down and he has an opportunity to get new ones in and thinks that they'll perform better for him, do you think he's got a right to defend himself in the press?
To an extent, definitely, but I think he's playing a risky game because he might not be able to get new players in, and he might not be able to get these players to leave. At the end of the day, these players are under contract, and if he wants them to leave, they either someone has to come in for them, we have to loan them out, or we have to pay them off. And we're definitely not going to do that because we're not in a position to do that. So I think if I was the manager, I certainly wouldn't be saying these things because I'd want to sort of protect my squad and try and maybe empower them to feel like they can step up and be the players he needs them to be and to fill into positions that he wants them to be in, to play the style of football he wants to play. But, it's Derek Adams. He doesn't really think the way that most of us think. But you have to say that, Derek Adams has got a good track record at this club, and I think from what he said when he first came in the door, it's certainly gone south since then. Him saying that he wants top 6 and to push for Europe. That's not on the cards this season. Let's get that out there. So I think he maybe needs to reevaluate this season slightly. But again, I mean, on the flip side, you could look at it and say, yeah, it's ambitious. He wants to get better players in, etc., etc. But yeah, it's tough, and it's always going to be a difference of opinion, really.
I tell you what, it's a different tactic than what Malky would do, is that he'd always come out and defend his playing squad. And people would complain about that, to be fair, because we got fed up of hearing the same thing after every match. So it is something different. I think that's what we wanted, obviously, when we appointed the new manager. I think touch wood, oh my God. I don't think Derek Adams will take us down. I still think that, but I think he's, at the moment, we'll see at the end of the January transfer window. I just think he's not helping himself at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair enough. And that covers the Aberdeen game quite nicely, obviously, without delving into the goals too much. We all know what happened. You get the drift. We're not happy. But nevertheless, since it's been over a month since we last recorded the podcast, I think it's about time we had a good, bad, and ugly. We're just going to take a general look at this. So over the last 4 or 5 games since the last time we recorded, got quite a lot to choose from. So this should be fairly easy. We'll just go 3 each straight off the bat. Ramsay, talk to me.
Start with the good. Are we going good?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, good over the last month. Let me think. Oh my God, I can't. Like, there has been good moments, but I think the one I'm thinking of is a good one, which is Danda's free kick and performance against Hearts was like one of the best things I've seen this season. But it seems to have led to a lot of interest in him, so it could also be bad.
Yeah, that's
You
fair.
can go for that. That's a good.
Yeah,
So only bit of
just
entertainment.
yeah.
Only bit of entertainment we've had the past month, so it's probably
screamer.
Yeah.
Hold on, before we move on, that or Hungbo against Dundee. I think Hungbo against Dundee, but oh my
me
God.
Hungbo. I don't want to
Hungbo.
downplay Danda's free kick unless Hearts are listening. But I think that Hungbo's was just the absolute perfect. I think Hungbo's was a bit further out as well.
Yeah.
How's Hungbo getting on in Germany? Does anyone know?
Not great, I don't think.
Oh.
Don't think he's played much football. Someone get on the phone.
I would say, for me, good. He's kind of taking the obvious one if we're talking footballing standards. I would say, for good, personally, I would say the entertainment value around Derek Adams has been sensational.
Fair.
All from that initial interview. I also loved his interview after the Hearts game where he came out. He's like, "See, that's what I'm talking about. This is the kind of football we want to see. Told you I could turn it around." That was brilliant from him. I would say just Derek Adams' lack of care at the rest of Scottish football is just thoroughly. I don't know if it's good for the football club, but it's entertaining me.
He also has thundered into the Hearts press room after the game, and just the first person who asked him what he thought of the game, he's gone, "Oh, what do you think? What do you think?"
What a legend.
My good. I'm gonna go down a different route. I'm gonna steer away from football. I'm gonna go the Prices and Stratfords before the Hearts game because it was cheap and cheerful. Exactly what we're after. Just roasting, but cheap, and they had the Old Firm on. Just perfect location before the football game, and I will be back.
And you got to see all the Hearts fans raging at the Old Firm Square. So it's a lovely addition to the afternoon proceedings.
Yeah, right. Bad, Ramsay.
Oh jeez. Bad. There's a lot. This is bad, but not ugly, because there was, a positive that day. But the fact that we didn't see out the Hearts game, I feel like if we did that, like it was a good point at Tynecastle. I feel like if we did that, a win at Tynecastle, it's been ages and ages since we won there. I think that would have been a real sort of bounce pad to the Aberdeen game.
Yeah, that was a good one.
I would say bad, just their overall defending the past month. That's kind of hard to argue with.
Yeah, fair enough. Bad. I think I'll go with just the whole Aberdeen game. Just a pretty shocking start to the year from the football club. Not what we're after. And considering that's the second time they've pumped us this season, yeah, it's not for not the best viewing. So I'll just go for that.
Ugly, Ramsay. That was not an insult directed at you. Ramsay, you're ugly.
Cheers for that, mate. I think the ugly was sorry, Jack. The nutmeg for the second goal, for Aberdeen's second goal. I think I haven't seen a county player sent that bad in a while. Like, we've seen bad defending, sure, but I don't think we've seen a player so utterly left in the dust than that for a good while.
It was pretty filthy.
Our captain out to dry today, Ramsay.
Sorry?
Good to see you're taking it in turns to do that.
I'm gonna go for my ugly. I'm gonna go for not because of his looks, but because of his actions. And for me, it's got to be the steward at the Hearts game. I've never been patted down quite so vigorously in my life.
Can
in certain areas.
I think it's right. I think it is right that there has been a bit of crowd trouble, not really from county fans, but there's been a lot of football fans going on the pitch. There's been probably a bit of an increase in pyro. But if he thinks that I'm keeping some pyro between my legs, then fair play to him. He's doing his job well. Hearts are certainly getting what they're paying for and employing him as a steward.
Can I change my answer for ugly?
Go for it.
I nearly didn't get let into the St. Mirren game by one of the stewards because, Robbie, you went in before me and your ticket worked. Mine didn't. The turnstile was bugging. So what the steward thought that I'd given my ticket to you and was trying to use it twice. So I got turned away, but I stayed there complaining, and then this other steward comes along and says, "Oh yeah, come to the other turnstile." So that like St. Mirren is obviously not like a dome stadium. There's like gaps in the corners. So I went to the other turnstile, and thankfully my ticket worked there, and I got into the corner of the stadium. But I got bloody turned away from the St. Mirren game because they thought I was duplicating tickets for Robbie Macdonald. So that's my ugly.
Crime.
Yeah.
That's a crime. Lock me up and throw away the key.
My ugly. I'm gonna go for the Dundee fans after they scored. And I'm quite annoyed because I think we should have been able to take kickoff after Dundee scored.
Oh
and the
my
fact
word!
they
I
were,
forgot about that.
the fact they were ripping up the pitch, running all over the gaff, meant that we couldn't take kickoff, and like we couldn't let Yandanda shoot from a halfway line to try and get back, try and get a goal. And we still had a few, 10, 12 seconds on the clock. But nevertheless, it's still aggrieved, and I think it's unjustified the fact that we weren't allowed to take kickoff.
Yeah, I think that there's no way that we can blame decisions because there have been a couple that have gone our way over the past few games, and I do think that none of the ones that went against us really would have made any difference. Like that Dundee game was an absolute travesty. I think the fact that you can actually end a game because the fans have like ran down the clock is a joke. But I do think that it probably wouldn't have impacted the team. The other one, do you remember the Hearts game for their second goal when we're in the middle of making a sub and they just play on?
How did we forget about that?
Like, I know, and Adams was doing his dusting. There's no way that Latourie on the pitch would have stopped that goal, given that Shackland just kind of wandered into a free position inside the box. But
still, Josh,
the fact that is happening in football is an absolute joke, and I'm quite surprised Adams never mentioned it in his press conference after the game.
Josh Sims deliberately walking
I can't believe we forgot about that.
Yeah, we should have discussed that in full, but nevertheless.
But other than refereeing decisions, we're just rubbish.
Well, anyway, boys, before we wrap things up, we've got some current affairs to talk about. Some news coming out of the club in the last few days. Obviously, the January transfer window is well underway. So the first news, we were dealt. We kind of knew before because Derek Adams had said in the press that he wasn't going to be part of his plans, but Ben Payton has left the club. Not a player that we saw much of at all. Featured quite heavily in Malky's first season, in the first half of that season at left back and in midfield. And I thought he was decent at left back, but then obviously picked up quite a nasty injury, and that was kind of all that was to be said about Ben Payton. To be honest, we didn't really see much of him there again, but we wish him all the best. And then this morning, it was announced that Scott High, who was on loan to us from Huddersfield Town, will be leaving the club. He made 2 appearances, probably a total of about 24 minutes spent in a first-team county top. Featured quite heavily for the under-18s in the North of Scotland Cup. Was part of that famous side which lost the North of Scotland Cup final to Nairn County. Again, wish Scott High all the best, but came in, didn't really make an impact.
Sorry.
Didn't get much game time.
I'm just thinking, of his highlight as a county player is probably getting the ball fizzed off his back by Jack Baldwin from Motherwell's
Yeah.
6-second goal.
Cracking assist. Cracking assist.
Fingers crossed that he says he's been recalled through injury. Hopefully that's not too bad.
Yeah,
He'll probably get another loan, probably in England for the second half of the season.
Gonna make sense. He's not been in the squad for a long time. I actually don't think he's been in a squad since Jack Baldwin fizzed the ball off his back. So maybe he's still hurting from that. Maybe that's the injury. He's got a big ball mark on his back from Baldwin. I was like hoofing it off him. But yeah, nevertheless, we wish those two all the best. They've now departed. But the other news which came out the other day is that all of our youth loans, apart from Adam McKinnon and Matthew Wright, have been extended. So the likes of George Robest and Andrew McLeod, Ryan McClellan, Connell Ewan, can't think of the other boys, Logan Ross at Brora. Their loans are all being extended for the second half of the season. Is that good news for us, do you think, boys? Get them more game time? That's
really good news. I think Robeston and McLeod in particular are doing really well in Nairn. I think McLeod is. I've not been across to Nairn to watch them play, but just looking when they're playing on their feed at Twitter, it seems that McLeod's really sort of stepped up into senior football. You know, taking the responsibility. He's taking a few penalties. There's a lot of more senior players in that Nairn team who can be stepping up to do things like that. So I think he's really stepped up to the plate. I think Connell Ewan and Elgin aren't doing that well. They're sort of in a relegation battle, but he's been trusted to sort of start every game, and he's played almost, I think, every minute. So I think in the comments under Elgin's announcement that he was staying, that was quite well received. So it's good to see, you know, he's actually in league football. He's in the 42 clubs. So that's really good to see. I think he's around the same age as Dylan Smith, I think.
Older, I think, actually.
I think so it's good to see him doing really well. I think Logan Ross is a popular player at Brora. That news is well received. With the announcement that he's staying at them, I think they sent another goalkeeper out on loan to Clach. Danny Nichols, I think is his name. Danny Gillen, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Who else? Have I missed anyone?
Ryan McClellan.
Ryan McClellan. He's at Forest, is he?
He's at Elgin.
Elgin as well. Okay, he was at Forest last season. Sorry, that's bad mistake. Do you know much about how much he's been playing, Pete?
He's got a lot of regular game time. I think he's got 4 or 5 goals this season as well, so he's doing well. Just to add on top to Andrew McLeod, he's actually Nairn's top scorer this season from midfield, which is pretty impressive.
Just the more game time that players can get in men's football, especially at that young age, can only do the world of good. It doesn't really matter the level, of course, like the higher up the better. But in terms of, like, the likes of the Highland League is a proper league that's going to toughen up these boys and give them a real sense of the kind of physical nature of Scottish football that hopefully they'll be able to grow into in the coming seasons.
It also makes me feel strange that I'm saying things like, "Oh yeah, young boys, you know, getting minutes in senior football. They're the same age as me." It feels weird, but
just on
the dreams may be over, Ramsay.
Maybe just a bit. You saw my performance at the YFS Cup, mate.
Dreams definitely over
then. Yeah, so the other two we had news on one, and we're still awaiting news on Adam McKinnon, but Matthew Wright has returned to the club. Unfortunately, only managed to make 7 appearances for Elgin, getting a goal, but he was obviously hit with quite a bad illness, which was quite worrying for himself. So I think he's spent the best part of the last few months just recovering from that. So we wish him all the best, and hopefully once he's up to speed, Derek Adams can get a proper look at him. And obviously Adam McKinnon was kind of sent out on loan later. I think a lot of us thought he would maybe be headed for the Championship or League One again, but nevertheless, he kind of nothing transpired, and he headed out to Brora just to keep getting minutes and keep playing football. And that was just a short-term deal as well. So we're waiting for news on what his future holds. But I would maybe imagine that Derek Adams maybe, might give him a chance, or you never know, he might try and find him a loan that's a bit of a higher level to push him back to his levels that he was at last season.
I was quite surprised there was no takers on McKinnon, because we've not seen much of him in the county top, to be fair. But I remember when he was first coming through, Stuart Kettlewell was saying things like, "Oh yeah, he's technically one of the best in our squad right now." So
Yeah,
fingers crossed he can get a decent loan now. He's obviously a really talented player. How old is he now? 20?
21,
21. Okay.
21, I'm not sure.
Hopefully he can start getting some football at a higher level, because he's obviously one that's really sort of quite highly rated.
Yeah, definitely. And to finish off the official factual news, we had a cracking bit of news today, lads, that Will Nightingale has extended his loan. Obviously, he'd said in the past when Malky was still here that he's enjoyed his time and he would want to extend. Obviously, as we discussed on this podcast, Derek Adams has come in, and despite all the rumblings that have been around the club, Will Nightingale's committed himself to the cause, and he'll be staying around until the end of the season. Is that good news for us, boys?
That is good news. He's been our best centre back this season.
Yeah, he's what do you call it? It's clear. Joe else it is as well. It's a good signing because we need defenders badly, so it's good to keep the kind of more competent ones in the club. But it's also a sign that not every player must be too fuming or disheartened at Derek Adams. Like I think that's the first player who's had a very clear opportunity to get out the door after these comments, and he's decided to stay and stick by the manager. So I don't know. I'm not disputing that there's obviously there has been some unrest in the club, but maybe not all players are reacting as badly as we've heard as some of the other ones.
Do you maybe think that's to do with where Nightingale's come from in terms of that Adams is kind of, inadvertently kind of heaped praise on, the EFL and kind of League One and League Two in England by suggesting that, there's good quality down there. That's where he comes from. Maybe he's thinking that, he's going to be in favour with Adams and, get his name back in the starting 11.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think that maybe Adams is trying to appeal to that kind of player, and I don't know, just anything. Try to get some little positivity. I'm just trying to convince myself that Dante's staying. Okay.
Well, speaking of that, we must discuss the rumours that have been flying around. Obviously, after that stunning free kick, Hearts just can't contain themselves. And according to several sources, which now sadly includes Sky Sports, making it a bit more official, that Hearts are interested in Jan Danda. However, it did come out yesterday from the Scotsman that, we're asking for a decent bit of cash for Danda, and Hearts aren't really willing to spend that much money. So I think as things stand, they're kind of looking at a pre-contract for Jan Danda. But obviously, there's going to be other teams interested. Jan Danda's a cracking player. I think Bolton, one of the teams interested as well, which is obviously would move him back closer to his family base. But again, we argued this on the podcast before. Do you want to lose Danda now, get a bit of cash, reinvest in the team, or is Danda too valuable? Do you want to keep Danda till the end of the season and hope he keeps us up, sort of thing?
Yeah,
Well,
for me, I
first,
want to keep him. I think that we need to stay in this league badly. I think the way things are heading, possibly right now, it's not looking too hopeful. I think there's still plenty of season to go, and the transfer window will tell us. The transfer window will tell us a lot, but I think Danda showed his class, especially in that playoff game against Partick Thistle with the penalty and the last minute assist to bring it into extra time. I think Danda is that player who can be the difference in keeping us in the league, or even getting that couple of positions that could make up the amount of money. I don't think we're going to get much more than 200 grand for him. Like realistically, from what a team is actually willing to pay, I don't think we'd be getting much more than that. So I think the club are right to stand firm and try and get as much out of him as possible. There is that argument, obviously, that we did end up making a lot more money from Ross Stewart through his sell-on clause that you can get if you are to sell a player at this time. But I think the risk of going down is too strong for me to be giving up on a player like Danda, especially to a rival in the same league. I think
Also,
that,
I think Stuart, the thing with Ross Stewart, I think he was very much pushing to leave then and there. I think, and also the season Ross Stewart left us, he wasn't really performing all that well. I think Danda is a lot more important to us now, and as good as players Ross Stewart was, he wasn't really doing great that season. I think it's important to hold on to Danda more than anything. I hope he patches off Hearts so he doesn't have to play against us.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly that. If he can go, if I got offered that Danda would be going to England at the end of the season, I would bite my arm off for it.
yeah. I think it's similar to Charles Cook a couple of years ago. I think in the fact that everyone kind of knows they're going to be leaving, but it's like, can we just enjoy them while we have him, and hope he contributes as well as he can to the cause and to get us, fingers crossed, as far away from the bottom two positions as we can go. And obviously, the other rumor which has been floating around alongside Jan Danda standing near the exit door is Simon Murray. And obviously, Simon Murray, again, alongside Danda, have been one of our top performers this season, you'd have to say. And both Dundee clubs linked with him. I believe Simon Murray and his family are kind of still based in Dundee. So that factor probably plays quite strongly into the other two clubs' hands. But again, he'd be a big miss if we were to lose him at this time in the season, I would say.
He's a top scorer, isn't he?
Probably.
By
Yeah.
far our top scorer. I think that's not a type of player that you want to lose, especially the amount of like kind of drive and passion he's got seems to be quite infectious around the changing room. So it's a long one. There's obviously personal matters involved in the decision if he does move back, but I certainly hope he ends up at Dundee United over Dundee if those are the two options.
I love Simon Murray. I've never seen a man so angry to score a goal. I just love him. I losing him would be just a huge problem. I know we up top is probably the position we're most stacked in, apart from left back. I think Brophy. It's fair to say Murray's probably been the one keeping Brophy out of the team. If he were to leave, I guess the silver lining would be, opportunity for Brophy to get into the side. Because we really haven't seen much of him this season since he scored against Motherwell away. Murray would be a huge problem. The thought sort of scares me itself. The only sort of silver lining there is that the outlet that's been saying that has been getting a bit of flack recently for sort of, I think it's, what's the name of the page, Transfer Scotland.
Transfer Scotland, yeah.
Recently has been getting a bit of flack for kind of reporting rubbish, saying stuff like Kilmarnock or after Danda.
They wish.
Yeah.
Yeah, but nevertheless, those we'll keep updated on those. Fingers crossed, we managed to hold on to both players, and at least until the end of the season. But in recent county transfer windows, we've normally had a lot more sort of rumours online and stuff like that. And as things stand, we haven't really had any official sort of like people saying that, oh, we're interested in so and so. We've kind of just been going off whoever Morecambe are releasing and seen if they're going to join us. But that is, the two that we have that are, kind of being rumoured by Morecambe fans, etc., is Michael Mellon, who's a striker for Burnley. He was on loan at Morecambe. He was recalled today. And Eli King, a centre mid for Cardiff, who was also recalled today. And there is, a few rumours saying that Derek Adams was very keen on both those players. I believe Michael Mellon was Morecambe's top scorer as things stand. And Eli King apparently is, again, another one who's had a cracking season on loan. And obviously with them being recalled, the options there that they could go back out. And what I would argue, Derek Adams might not, but what I would argue is to a higher level, coming to play at the Scottish top flight. Two potential additions there.
I think Derek Adams knows fine well it's a higher level, which is probably why he's going to be able to bring these players in. I think that any striker who scores goals is definitely welcome at Ross County. Michael Mellon, I believe, scored 15 in 27 games, so pretty good return. Like, if you can provide that kind of level of goal scoring talent up here for the end of the season, then we'll be just fine. So I think Michael Mellon's definitely a player I'd like to see at County. Don't know too much about Eli King, but going off the Twitter reaction from Morecambe fans, who seems to have certainly been a player who was liked amongst the fan base and a player who they believe can go on to bigger and better things. So I hope that better things Ross County.
Definitely.
I think you're right that Derek Adams knows well that it's a higher standard. I think his head was just on the moon after Dundee.
He's a wind-up merchant, and he's absolutely reeled in the whole of Scottish football,
to say the least.
Yeah.
Especially Pete Mackay.
Yeah, he's baited me, but I've taken the bait, so
But
it's a win-win.
Exactly. But we've got Greg. Is it Greg Strong, head of recruitments, finally through the door? So that's, you can see why it's taken a wee bit of time to maybe get going compared to other transfer windows. We've got the winter break, so there's a bit of leeway when it comes to getting players. I'm sure there's probably boys on trial as we speak. So I think going into the next week or two is when I'd be getting worried if we don't see anyone in the door before the Partick game.
Definitely. And obviously that is the next upcoming game with the winter break. But before we end this podcast, our long-awaited return, we'll just end it on me asking you boys, have you got anyone on your transfer wish list? And if you don't have any names, then what is the positions that we need to be looking at urgently? What do we need in the door to propel us up the league? Robbie, start us off. Sorry.
Alex Schalk for me, but that's not going to happen. So can immediately tick him off the list. I want a winger. I want a player who's like, I don't have a name of a winger, but I want a player who's like Hungbo. And not like, I know Hungbo was a bit like, he was a very good player to be getting at the club, but I want a player who runs at defences and just gets the fans excited. We just don't really have anyone like that right now. Jay Henderson hasn't really got going yet in a county top, so I would love a player who can just beat a man and just attack down the wing, which I think Simon Murray can do so, but there's not many players at the club like that right now.
Yeah.
I think when I said someone Dutch, I didn't mean specifically Alex Schalk. It's just that Derek Adams had a thing for bringing in random Dutchmen to the squad, and it seemed to work. So hopefully he can work that magic again. But it looks like, going off interviews, he's going to be looking at the lower leagues of English football. I agree. We need wingers. We've only got sort of two natural wingers in the team, in Sims and Henderson. Something else, I think we could be looking at one more centre back, hopefully.
3 more centre
Definitely
backs.
don't need any more left backs. If Danda leaves, we need to look at creative players. And those are sort of few and far between. They cost a pretty penny. And if Murray leaves, we should probably be looking at another striker. But strikers, as you say, that score 10 goals a season also cost a pretty penny. So that Michael Mellon rumor is one that sort of excites me, especially if we lose Murray. Yeah, I mean, if Murray leaves, I think he'll probably be, if I could name a player, he'll be one of my wish lists. I think I say this every time we're in the transfer window. To name a player for us is difficult because there's the added worry of convincing players to move up to the Highlands.
Yeah, definitely. Well, boys, nevertheless, that is all we have to discuss. Partick Thistle on the agenda up next, but hopefully we'll be back with a podcast to talk about that game more, obviously in the Scottish Cup, and we'll delve into those Partick Thistle boys making their long-awaited return north after the playoff. Robbie, Ramsay, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us,
Thanks for
Pete.
having me. I've been looking at my face and your two faces for far too long on this screen. If you're watching on YouTube this long, what are you doing?
Apologies for the cracked screen.
Right,
Anyway,
take care,
boys.
boys.
As always, don't forget to follow us at Staggies View, Twitter and Instagram. Get us for some questions. and we'll be back in the next one. Thanks for listening.
And then I got high.
See ya.
And then I got high.